Then the judiciary is now in session. I'm making a motion to go into executive session. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're going to start with 191. I'm just going to make a re-refer motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the re-refer motion, or do you want to discuss first? We good?
I love that. So you're gonna have to go. So if we're gonna refer, just for,
Yep.
since you've opened discussion, Mr. Chair, and we're gonna go. Thank you. And since you've opened discussion,
We'll
And
just keep it brief if we can.
after
but sure.
re-refer, that would indicate that we're gonna work on something. And
We are going to work on something. And
what are we gonna do?
well, there were problems. I understand two sides of the argument.
Yeah.
Which we don't need to have that argument because there are problems with either argument. One would be if you had a coach, I think this was brought up at the hearing.
Mhm.
If you had a coach, they needed to get you to an emergency for stitches, a bone broke through, something happened. This would be a problem. So we want to work out on those problems. So appreciate it if we could work over. Yes, it will be worked on over the summer to make it better, and then we can talk about it in the fall. I think I'll have a better bill and a better amended bill for you in the fall. So I'd appreciate it if you'd just let us deal with it in the fall.
All right, well,
And today.
hear me out.
Sure.
How about we just ITL it and you still spend the same amount of time, but bring something new in January? Then there's not a whole lot of, you don't have to, and it frees up some of your summer, just saying. It frees up some summer.
Thank you for offering to free up my time. Senator,
You're
do you have a
welcome. I'm a
comment?
giver.
Sarah, are you?
I'm good.
You're good. Okay. The motion is re-refer. All in favor of the re-refer motion, say aye. Aye.
No.
Opposed? 2 noes or 1?
No, thank you.
2. Okay. Thank you. I'll take it out. Thank you. I'm making a motion. Okay, we're going on to 196. I make a motion to ITL. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
196.
We can just discuss it on the floor if you don't mind, but if you want, we can talk about it.
96. And I'm sorry, the motion is to ITL?
Yes, ma'am. So I can give you my
And then-
reason. Usually these cases have already been pled down. So from a higher charge to a lesser charge. And at this time, I'm not in the mood to annul certain cannabis possession offenses.
So,
But go ahead, Senator.
thank you. Does this section only apply to cases where the charge has been pled down, or?
No, it applies to
We're
all.
just assuming that happens a lot.
I'm assuming it happens a lot.
Gotcha.
Because this doesn't bifurcate out.
It doesn't. My second question is,
Sure.
why are we asking the Department of Safety in the second paragraph to do any annulling?
Why am I asking them to do a no?
Yeah, the bill on line 8, lines 7 and 8 said any person who believes he or she is eligible for an annulment pursuant to the section may request that the Department of Safety examine.
So you're asking me why the Department of Safety is doing the annulment?
And not the court.
I hadn't thought of the question. I'll ask our learned counsel. Thoughts?
Well, it's the Department of Safety that maintains the criminal record database. So if the question boils down to whether there is a conviction that falls within the proper scope of the annulment, then the Department of Safety would be the first stop. A person would probably, well, it looks to me like it doesn't require any. It allows the Department of Safety to issue annulments, basically, which is weird.
Real weird. And it's a criminal drug offense. It's not a motor vehicle infraction. So why wouldn't it be the administrative office of the courts?
Well, the courts, I don't think the administrative office of the courts maintains a criminal record database, so they might not have the information. And a person seeking an annulment might not remember what court they were convicted in.
Who makes, so the Department of Safety maintains a database of anybody who's been charged with any crime? in
They,
the state
well,
of
I don't know if
Hampshire?
they have, yeah, well, yeah, their records, I believe, show arrests. I don't know if they necessarily capture direct charges that don't arise out of an arrest. And it may just underscore some of the problems with the bill at this stage.
Thank you.
Okay, on the ITL motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Did you guys say nay? I didn't.
No,
hear.
we said aye.
Oh,
Said
okay,
aye.
okay.
Yeah. Team
Very good.
players.
Team players,
Consent.
awesome. Second, on the motion for consent, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll take it up. I'm just gonna go right down to 733 and make a motion to re-refer. Do I have a second? All in favor of the well, I think, are we at a point where?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of the
Flipping pages.
re-refer motion? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So it's 5. Motion for consent?
Second.
All in favor of the consent motion?
Aye.
I went to 733. I just somehow wanted it done with. I'll take it up. Re-refer, yes. Just get back to 369.
Or when we were doing
I
this.
can't do it because that's one of the ones we haven't heard. Oh, okay. Oh, we have the amendment. Oh, I'm sorry. On 369.
Yeah, and
Okay,
so that's
thank
an
you.
automatic.
Uh,
Yeah, I didn't realize. So that's 3. We did 3, right? Just 3.
506, I'm just gonna hold, correct? You're working on something on 506. Okay, I'll still do it after the other two because they're easier. I'm gonna make a motion, we're gonna go to 511, I'm making a motion of ought to pass. This is the same same type of bill as SB 71, which is our anti-sanctuary city bill. It's just the House version. And so I have a motion ought to pass today.
Second.
I have a second. Okay. Do we need to discuss or?
For all the same reasons I didn't like the other one. I don't like
Thank you.
this one.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I'm listening.
Yeah, since the first one was heard and this subsequent hearing from 511 has happened, we have been given ample examples why we should not be getting anywhere near this with a 10-foot pole.
Okay, so noted. All in favor of my ought to pass motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I will take it up. Can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm bringing out 528 and making an ought to pass motion. Do I have a second?
Let me get the file so I can be surprised here.
I went to 528, just,
I'm second.
Can I take it out already?
thank you.
196, 191, 528.
And I'm gonna introduce
Is there an amendment?
Amendment 2061, which is an Avis amendment, but let me find it myself.
2061.
2061S,
I've got 2019.
unless
We've got another one?
2061.
It was on the table.
yeah, I'd take an extra too. Oh, no, we probably have them. They're
Oh,
probably
I
up
got
here.
it, got it,
I'm
got it.
sorry.
And 2 Avis amendments. I got
Yes, Kate, you could explain the amendments. That would be greatly appreciated.
So the amendment adds to the bill, most of Senate Bill 14, Senate Bill 15, Senator Gannon's mandatory minimum bills on fentanyl, with some changes to reduce the number of years for the minimum for both bills. And for the death resulting, it will only incur a minimum mandatory if the person knew that it was fentanyl, should have recently known. So there's not strict liability for knowing if there was fentanyl or not.
So.
Yep.
I have a question on the amendment. On page 2, lines 6 through, I'm gonna just say 10 for the
Yep.
sake of reference. The offender's mental capacity at the time of the commission of the offense for which the offender is to be sentenced was significantly impaired to the extent that the defendant was deemed incompetent. Okay. However, a voluntarily induced intoxicated or drugged condition may not be considered an impairment. What's the determination for voluntarily induced intoxication?
Well, there'd be a difference. Oh, you want to say, Rick? Okay. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So if you took the drug yourself and were in a different mental state, different capacity from taking that drug, you'd still be liable here. Because you self-induced it, you did it yourself. It isn't, if
You physically,
you took the stuff yourself.
where does that leave room for coercion?
If it's coerced, it's not voluntary, but that principle is a common thread in all the criminal law. Voluntary intoxication doesn't excuse a person from having the inability to form the requisite mental state to commit any crime. But involuntary intoxication or coercion makes it no longer voluntary.
So in this amendment, where would we be referencing that involuntary space as this is amended?
I think it occupies the negative space. If it's not voluntary, it's involuntary. And it ultimately is a jury question and the burden's on the state to prove all those points.
But if there is a definition of involuntary, shouldn't it also be enumerated in this?
I don't know that there is a definition of involuntary, but this concept of voluntary intoxication is one that's common in the criminal code. Pre-existing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No
Senator Reardon.
Thank you. So, isn't involuntary possibly a question of fact too, that maybe we shouldn't decide and statute should get decided by proof in a courtroom? And
Well, yeah, we get in each individual case, the defenses are raised. Generally, it's the burden of the state to rebut it beyond a reasonable doubt. So if a person says, just for example, I wasn't intentionally intoxicated, somebody roofied me.
Right.
That's a defense that the state would have to disprove at a trial.
Also, just to clarify, that piece of it is not new. That's the same as the bill passed by this committee and passed by the Senate. That part was already in the bill. Thing that changes reducing the number of years and then the strict liability.
Didn't like it then. Yeah, I didn't like it then. I'm just not liking it all over again. So we, since it's here, but let's go through why.
so just,
Yeah.
Another question by the senator.
Go ahead, Senator
so
Reardon. I'm
for
sorry.
clarification, we're preserving the part of the statute that legalizes mushrooms for anybody over 21. And
Well, it's not
double-
legalizing mushrooms, Senator. It's reducing the penalty unless it's changed more than I thought.
it shall not be an offense under this chapter for a person 21 years or older to obtain, purchase, transfer, or possess. It says it's not an offense. Yeah.
You were correct.
So we're trading that for enhanced penalties on
One might say that.
killer drugs.
Yes. Okay, on 2061, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
So now I'm moving 528 as amended. All in favor of the ought to pass? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No,
Nope.
Okay. I'll take it out. Thank you.
Got a busy day.
Every day's busy.
Two,
And
3 to 2.
what am I left with here? Am I all set?
Did you just do that?
no, I think we have more.
11.
Which one?
What happened to
Oh, this is okay.
369? Oh, we're.
Let me
are
get
we-
the amendment out.
Wait, are we
Two,
not?
zero.
Did I miss a conversation?
2019S.
Okay, we're waiting. So are we taking up 506 right now?
So we're looking at the amendment per minute on 2019S.
I do.
20.
And this is another amendment from Senator Abbas. It was an agreement between the sponsor, the police, and the Coalition for Domestic Violence. They all have looked at the language and they're fine with it.
I had that amendment in one space. Okay.
And it-
After section 1.
Because it's not clear in the amendment, I can also, basically what it takes out is the word clearly from the original bill. It takes out the word clearly on page 1, line 22. And then on page 1, line 22, it adds the sentence, or it is known to the Department of Safety that such individual is explicitly prohibited from possessing said property by state or federal statute. The concern was that things, the Department of Safety may know someone can't have a firearm for whatever reason that doesn't come up in a NICS check. And so they wanted to ensure they weren't being forced to give the firearms back if they're legally not allowed to.
I'm sorry, where was the clearly? I missed the I'm looking. 22. Oh, I see the first word. I see. Thank you. Thank you. And forgive me to backtrack on that. What was the reasoning for taking out the word clearly again?
It's not necessary.
I mean, that word specifically, I don't know, but I know in general, both of the changes were intended to specifically allow the Department of Safety to make sure that that they're complying with state and federal law, essentially, when it comes to returning things, that things would not come up on a NICS check that they need to check for, that they already know someone can't have something returned, for example.
Those words were added in the sentence and then word is known to the department so that the defendant can't have firearms.
Did you
So-
decide to move the amendment or are you waiting?
Yeah, you can move the amendment. What's that?
Yeah, it's
me.
a bar, and that we didn't define it, so, yeah, take it out.
Okay,
Exactly.
I'm moving the amendment.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of amendment number, whatever it is,
2019S.
2019S, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Motion to move.
yeah,
HB
motion to move the
506
underlying Bill 506 FN as amended. All in favor? Aye. No, right?
No.
No,
No, yeah, you guys are quiet?
no, we're waiting for our turn.
Okay,
Now we're gonna discuss it.
Just being polite.
We're just
No.
being polite.
very good.
You read for the
Okay,
floor, Gannon.
We'll take it
Say
out.
it again. You're taking it.
Then Gannon, you're taking it out?
Yes. Okay, I think we're there. Painful, but. Okay, so Motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
All in favor, said aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Ready to go, Pete? Okay, I knew you were ready half hour ago.
Still didn't get one. No, 369.
Oh, and it's 1:30, you all right? Okay.
We didn't do
Wait,
anything
hold.
with 360.
Wait, can,
Roll.
Senator, Dan?
Yes.
Are we holding on 369, or did we, we're waiting for him, okay, okay, good enough. Today, okay, got it. That's right.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Much better. Representative Wall, come on down. You don't have to. Representative Wall, welcome. You're here to introduce HB 387, an act relative to balloons being released into the air. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here with you, I hope. And I've served a long, long time. I don't sponsor frivolous legislation, and just looking at the title of this, one might think that's what it is. This bill has come before the Senate before. It passed the House last time and this time on a voice vote on the consent calendar. It failed in the Senate last time because there was no education provision in it. This bill comes at the request of a constituent who's requested it several times, and I finally took it very seriously. I've heard from environmentalists, I've heard from people who sail on the ocean, people who fish and lobster, as well as police officers. All these people have supported this bill. Florida last year became the 12th state to institute this law, or one similar to it. This seems to be the strongest one because it does introduce an education provision. It would be that all balloons that are sold have to have a weight of some sort on them. And currently, there's one place that I know of that does have a weight, and that's at the grocery store market basket. What these people who want the bill have requested is that a tag go on saying that these balloons can do cause environmental damage to wildlife and to marine life, and to not intentionally release balloons. There are plenty of ways to celebrate festivities without using balloons. On my way up today, I saw another balloon by the roadside, and those foil things that last forever. I was at my doctor's office a while ago, and one of the women who works there reported that her sister owns a farm in Stratford County, and they lost not one, but 2 cows to balloons. These things are ingested when they come back to Earth. The regular balloons can fall apart, and they're consumed by wildlife as well as marine life. These cows, it's verified with documentation, had ingested balloons while out in the field. It's very important that we pay attention to our environment, as we all know. And I know at this time when we're all dealing with the budget and very heavy-duty issues, that this one may seem light, but it is not. Again, Florida's the 12th state that's instituted a law like this. The states all go up and down the eastern seaboard, and even Hawaii has been included in this. Our surrounding states have also instituted a law like this, but what's interesting is they haven't even bothered to put in the education provision or wait. They just say, if they find the balloons and they figure out who released them, then they will go after them and there will be serious fines. Our fine isn't as serious as some. Our fine would be $250 for the first offense and $500 for subsequent offenses. Again, these balloons that would be sold would have a weight on them, again, as they do at Market Basket. They would have a little tag on them to say that these must not be released intentionally, and that they do cause environmental damage, not just to the environment, but to the wildlife and marine life. I am taking this bill seriously at this time, and I ask that the committee do as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And not to make light of the balloon issue. No, I'm up in the air about it. That's another joke. But I'm sorry. Do you have, are there any groups? There's no one else testifying today, just you. Oh, there you go. Okay. So I just like data that this is like a problem. We're losing a % of fish or something, or is it just anecdotal that, Jesus, balloons, it must be a problem?
And usually, well, always, if I sponsor a bill, I do it with both parties and I do a geographic spread. At the time I was filing this, we were dealing with the loss of my brother-in-law. I was spending a lot of time down in Massachusetts. So when it came time to file, I just rushed up here and filed the bill because I had been requested to do it. Environmental groups have supported this, and I don't have the file with me, and I apologize. The House does have the file in terms of who has supported this in the past and now. It's on the internet even. It shows birds that are tangled up in the strings. It shows fish that have died, even big things like sharks. And it's out there. It is a problem and it needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator McConkey, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam, for taking my question. So if I understand the testimony, that if someone has a balloon, it's inflated with helium, it has to have a weight on it, and then the weight has to have whose balloon that is. And then if they find that balloon tangled up in an animal or a fish or something, then a fine would be levied. Is that how this would be enforced?
The last part of your question?
I'm sorry. So the person buying the balloon is to tag on it who it is.
Mhm.
And then there's a fine associated with it, a first-time offense and so forth. And so the enforcement action is I find the balloon, it's done harm, and then the fine is levied against the person.
To answer you, it doesn't have to be a separate tag. It can be something like a clothespin type of object, which is what Market Basket has. There's room to put the wording on it. And this calls for if there's a release of a cluster of 20, we're starting out at that level. Other states have it if you find a balloon. But this would be enforceable if you find a cluster, and there are clusters of balloons that are released at weddings, at graduations, other kinds of celebrations, and these are found. One fisherman who could not be here today, he's a businessman and works around the country, but does do deep sea fishing on weekends and holidays, actually came in one day on his boat, and he had one of those big trash cans loaded with trash, most of which were balloons. And the way to track these would be that, again, just put that clip on the base of the balloon and sell it to somebody. And that's the way to track where it came from originally. If there's a cluster of balloons, businesses, from what police have told me, they are able to figure out where the balloons come from. The air in our country travels primarily from west to east or southwest and southeast up our way. And so there's destinations can be, or not destinations, places of origin can be a little difficult to figure, but these balloons can fly as far as 5 miles or more, and they are being found.
Certainly, if I could just follow. So the legislation is on clusters of balloons that are released so if I as a good grandfather buy a balloon for each one of my grandchildren and those little boys have a tendency to let go, I'm not entitled to a fine of $250 if my grandson lets a balloon go. It's only a cluster of balloons. Am I correct?
Clusters are released, if I understand you correctly.
No, I understand that, but I'm talking about a individual balloon. I imagine there's some
Well, if they
definition.
find a balloon, that's unfortunate, and sometimes, and I guess especially if this is put into law, there will be a tag on it or a clip, whatever, that says where it came from. And then you can go back to the origin of purchase, which would be whatever store sold it or whatever. It would be up to the rules to determine how the wording should be on these tags.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative, for taking my question. It's nice to see you. So as I'm reading this legislation right here, this is adding to the littering law, the intentional littering law. So we've already taken actions that tell people when you finish your Dunks cup, you can't just chuck it out the window on the road, right? That's intentional littering. And we have taken measures against dumping your trash somewhere it doesn't belong, littering. And so this is, I see that this is added to littering. And I'm looking at page 2, and I see that the legislation says you were talking about lighter than air balloons shall be sold with a weight and tag that inform the purchaser that the release of 20 or more is harmful to wildlife. And could possibly be punished. So the tag you're talking about could be anything like the clothespins that Market Basket sells with, correct? It's not prescribing a specific kind of tag, just a label that says, don't release this in the air. Is that what that's what this is written as. It's not a traceable tag to a particular store. This says it's a warning label, correct?
Well, the idea is to get started on having the environment cleaned up from these balloons that are being released, that are a problem. And again, 12 other states have recognized it without even asking for a tag or anything like that. I don't know how they're tracing it, honestly, but they have provisions in there where you can pay up to $1,000 if they find balloons. And we're talking about a cluster to get started with. We're talking about trying to identify these. Even the police who would be in charge of prosecuting these cases have agreed that something has to be done. And this is a starting position. That's why we were a little bit generous in saying 20 balloons. They do find clusters of those things. Mostly it's individual balloons when, at your, say, graduation season's coming, and all these balloons go up in the air. Sometimes there are clusters from events. Again, the idea is to raise awareness so people will stop releasing these balloons outside. I don't see a real problem in terms of starting somewhere.
So would you have to find 20 balloons to convict me? If you found 18 balloons and I don't.
This is the start. This,
Okay.
you may amend that or something. You may want to change that. But this was just an idea that we came up with, talking about with various constituents and parties of interest. What can we do? Where do we start? Other states don't even list a number of balloons. A balloon, $1,000 fine. How on earth do they ever trace that or enforce it? So we're just looking for some way to raise awareness that really, folks, there's a better way to release something into the air, pigeons or something who do fly back to where they're supposed to. Throw confetti, but clean it up. But this idea here was that we've got to do something. And we just decided that talking it over with the people who have approached me, the fishermen, the sailors, there's 4 police officers I talked with, the farmer who lost the cows. I have a neighbor who lost a cat by nibbling on the string from a balloon. It got all entwined inside and the cat had to be put down. This is occurring. These are happening. We're often seeing balloons by the roadsides. Hikers, actually, someone approached me and said, why didn't you include hikers? Well, wherever these balloons fall, they fall. Usually we're finding them in the ocean because it's easier to see them there. But this past winter, there were 2 hikers who went up to the Whites and located 3 balloons in 1 tree and complained about that. So it's an issue that we must address, and this was just a general way of trying to come up with, okay, we've got to start somewhere.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Wall.
Thank you.
We're there. Anyone else wish to testify who didn't get a chance? You did. Okay. Good afternoon, Representative. How you doing today?
Thank you, Chair Cannon. My name is, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. My name is Will Darby. I'm representing Hillsborough District 11. I didn't actually come before you today to testify on this bill, but I am passionate about it. This will be very brief. I'm an ardent outdoorsman. I hunt pretty extensively in both the spring for turkey and fall for deer. And I just wanted to relay that it is incredibly common to find balloons, especially mylar balloons in the woods. I find them about 50 to 60% of the time. 2 weekends ago, I was out in Ringe and found 2 Mylar balloons. And with respect to clusters, I've definitely seen large clusters that are basically taking up just a swath of really disturbing, are pretty pristine, natural landscape. As we know, and as I'll testify again in a couple of minutes, New Hampshire has a very large tourism industry, and our precious outdoor resources really, benefit our economy, and I think that they benefit our constituency as well. And keeping our lands and our forests clean, I think, is paramount. And so I think this is a good start. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you again, Chair Gannon, and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Again, for the record, my name is Will Darby, Representative Will Darby, representing Hillsborough District 11, National Ward 8. So to start, as I just mentioned in the previous testimony, the outdoor tourism is a huge industry in our state, bringing in $325 million annually in tax revenue, and $3.9 billion to our state economy. We have 1,000 public lakes and ponds, and they're major summer tourism attraction for visitors and, of course, for our residents as well. I'm on the House Resource, Recreation, and Development Committee, and we hear, of course, multiple lake-related bills. One of the common themes we hear in lots of testimony, especially regarding things like wake surfing or personal watercraft and things like that, are about the lack of marine patrol on our lakes and how the numbers seem to be going down every year. I own a small camp on Lake Menominee in Ringe, and 10 years ago, when I first purchased that camp, we would see Marine Patrol out every weekend on that little lake. Last year, we did not have Marine Patrol out a single day. Yet what we do see is we see jet skis jumping the wakes behind wake surfers. This is not a big lake, so there's it's very obvious when it happens. We see unregistered watercraft. We see ski craft. This is a lake that prohibits ski craft. Those are the small jet skis. We see ski craft coming from Massachusetts. If you're not familiar, Lake Menominee has a portion that is in Massachusetts. And we also see out-of-state boats without the invasive species decal. That, of course, is a loss of revenue for our Department of Environmental Services to fight invasive species. We know that, and I truly believe that the vast majority of boaters are responsible, and that it's really education that's essential. One of the things that I think that Marine Patrol does that I've seen personally, and when I talk to Marine Patrol, this is what they say, is that they want to inform that it's not so much about penalizing violators, it's about informing them, just to make sure that they're aware of the laws. Of course, egregious activities, they do get fined, but a lot of times you can just give people, let people know what the laws are, and they self-correct in the future. We also know, I think we've all experienced this personally, that people are more responsible when law enforcement is present. If you're driving on the road, you see a police officer on the side of the road, people just naturally drive. Maybe they're driving a little fast, but they're not driving 25 miles an hour over the speed limit. So the visibility of Marine Patrol makes a big difference in behavior. And the conflicts on the lake can also be minimized by having Marine Patrol present. It's really a better balance of the varied uses between people fishing, kayaking, swimming, power boating, jet skiing, because people are more responsible. And they are public waterways. Everyone's allowed to use them. People should use them responsibly. As I've spoken with members of Marine Patrol, I've learned that funding is actually not the issue here. Numerous positions go unfilled every year, particularly the seasonal positions. And I've also learned that recruiting is not a problem in that they have the resources to do recruiting, and they have extensive recruiting programs in different venues to really get the word out. Other people have suggested that maybe training is a problem, but from my discussions, there is no single magic bullet. I've spoken to many members of the Department of Safety, including Assistant Commissioner Edwards, on this. And with respect to that, I was originally planning this bill to be a study committee. I served on the Fish and Game Study Committee about partnerships over the summer and found great bipartisan collaboration on that. But when I spoke with the Assistant Commissioner Edwards at the Department of Safety, he recommended a task force instead and said that they'd had previous successes with task forces. He said that they the meetings, of course, would be public. Legislators can attend it and comment. And that their goal would be to propose legislation that we could bring forward to increase law enforcement patrols on New Hampshire water bodies. Some people might ask, hey, if they can put together a task force, is this bill really necessary? My answer is yes, I think so, because the problem is getting worse every year. That's what we're hearing from the people. If you go to a lake association meeting, you will hear that at every one of them. I've spoken to New Hampshire Lakes about this, for example. If you're on any lake association social media pages, they will talk about the lack of Marine Patrol. And also, like I mentioned before, public hearings on the bills that I've listened to. I believe that the Department of Safety benefits from the direction by the legislature to address the shortage in Marine Patrol. By asking them to put together this task force, they'll take it seriously and realize how important it is to our constituents that they address this matter in maybe non-traditional ways. And that's the purpose of this multi-agency task force, is to look at non-traditional ways to put together different approaches to increasing patrols on the lakes. It's not necessarily only about increasing the number of marine patrol, but looking at other options that I think both the Department of Safety and maybe some other agencies have as well. The other agencies already have the authority to enforce these laws. For example, Fish and Game on RSA 206.26.11 has the ability to enforce laws related to boats. They have the ability to enforce laws related to motor vehicles. New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services has the Lakes Management and Protection Program. These are a couple of the agencies listed in the multi-agency task force. They have the New Hampshire Lakes Management and Protection Program, which is about promoting our lakes and water bodies, public water bodies. The multi-agency task force will engage stakeholders and experts, including municipal and county law enforcement, that in some cases already provide, in limited cases, already provide enforcement on lakes. And it will also bring together other groups that I've worked with on this bill, including Marine Trades Association and New Hampshire Lakes, to make sure that all positions are heard. There are, as I understand, there are dollars left on the table, federal dollars, to support Marine Patrol that are being unused because we can't fill the positions. And so maybe with some, my hope is that with some creative approaches, we can find ways to increase Marine Patrol and unlock those dollars. Overall, the intent of this bill is to provide recommendations on how to address the problem of insufficient Marine Patrol and insufficient, patrols in general on our water bodies, so residents and tourists can fully enjoy our treasured lakes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would you believe, Representative, that I live on Phillips Pond, and I see them at least a dozen times during the summer. So
I-
maybe they're spending all the time at my pond and should go to your pond.
I am shocked, actually.
Okay. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this legislation forward. I grew up on Lake Winnipesaukee, and I remember when we didn't have milfoil. So is there, would this study and its commission, correct?
It's a task force.
Task force,
It's a task
sorry,
force
task
led by
force.
the Department of Safety.
Okay, so I am just buried in all of the lake people who have written in about this, so I'm thrilled to see that. Would the task force take up an idea of expansion of the volunteer program right now, the Lake Ambassadors? Is that something that would be under the purview of this group?
This task force is more targeted at the patrols on the lake itself, as opposed to the lake. I think you're speaking of the lake host program that New Hampshire Lakes runs. I'm actually happen to be a member of the exotic weeds committee as well, or committee as well, and that we do talk about that particular group there. This is more how that would benefit, how that organization would benefit from this bill, is that it is not widely known or even enforced that there is a requirement for boats registered out of state to have an exotic weeds sticker on their boat. The money from that flows into the exotic weeds program, which funds, as far as I understand, funds the Lakes Host program. And so indirectly, I think it would benefit it. Thank you.
Honorable members of the committee, my name is Tim Dunleavy. I come before you today from the Department of Safety Marine Patrol Unit. We are neutral on this bill. However, the Department of Safety wants you to know that we understand the role we would play in the task force and understand the wishes of Representative Darby and what his goal is with the bill that's before you today. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Sure, we'll start with me since I found if my kids go out with a life vest, they're gonna get pulled over. I just it fails not that no matter how many times. So I see them on my pond, mile long, half mile wide at the biggest, all the time. So Officer Trout, is he still with you?
No, he's not.
No, okay.
No.
I used to see him. If
Sure.
I did anything wrong, officer. His first name was Brooke, too.
Yeah, yeah.
For anyone in the room, Brooke Trout. How perfect for him. Yes, it was.
His parents curse.
They did. It was funny. They knew his profession before he did. So why am I finding that the Marine Patrol is on my lake all the time? Is it just maybe, and others aren't? Are you spreading the guys out?
We are. I will tell you that our patrol force oftentimes is an officer who lives in a certain part of the state and is assigned appropriately. And then we do what we can to supplement those areas of the state where we don't have an officer living in it. I can tell you historically, there were days within our agency where we had between 70 and 80 seasonal officers statewide. In every county, we would have multiple officers. We're now down to about 20. And as Representative Darby said, and I'm sure you folks have heard, this is not unique to Marine Patrol. It is a law enforcement issue, the ability to recruit new officers. And we are feeling those same struggles. So with that, the state police is doing its best to try to supplement the ranks of Marine Patrol with troopers when they're available and not needed on the road. But those are some of the creative things that are being looked at. But specific to Phillips Pond versus Menominee, it can be something as simple as people calling, saying we have issues and we need presence. It can be something as simple as Officer Trout lives right around the corner and that's his first stop. That's the reality.
Question, Senator?
Yes, thank you. Senator Levy, great to see you, as always. I heard a statement from the good representative that you have plenty of funding, you just can't fill positions. Is that indeed the case?
Nice to see you, Senator, as well. That is an accurate statement. We currently benefit from a dedicated fund, which is resources and revenues generated from the boating education program, boat registrations, in-state boat registrations, as well as recreational boating safety grant that comes from the federal government. Because of our numbers, we have a budget for between 50 and 60 seasonal officers every year. And where we're not filling those ranks, it's a true statement that the budget and funding is not the main issue behind the lack of patrols.
Thank you for that. Speaking of a task force, is there so you tell me that there has been a conversation, Department of Safety, of supplementing other departments, state police or whatever, in times of need or to fill a gap. What else do you see that a task force could accomplish? It seems to me manpower is the issue. Person power is the issue. And I would, knowing the number of time you've spent in this position, I'd like your opinion on that, even though I know the department is neutral.
Thank you, Senator. I think it is the task force to analyze what other department resources have, both manpower and financial, to supplement patrols on the water. I know in the case of Fish and Game, their circumstances are obvious when it comes to their funding. Their personnel isn't quite as in dire straits as some other law enforcement agencies, as far as I know. But we also recognize that their primary function in the summertime may not be on the water. Yeah, we all hear the stories about the rescues in the mountains, from that to the rabid skunk. So not speaking for them, that is the agency that certainly has people and have a presence on the water. And as Representative Darby said, to look at some of the other agencies that may have opportunities to show some presence.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for taking my question. You said these are seasonal positions?
Thank you, Senator. Good question. Marine Patrol, the majority of their patrol presence are seasonal officers. The finances of trying to maintain a year-round Marine Patrol force with benefits and so on, it's not a strong model. So we have always tapped into a seasonal force. Right now, there are, I believe, 9 full-time year-round positions within the Marine Patrol, recognizing that those 9 positions, at least 3 to 4 of them, are playing a significant role in our Homeland Security presence down on the seacoast year-round. And then we've got training staff assigned to training and recruiting. We have staff assigned to public relations, and those other roles that law enforcement play. But it is a ratio of about 8 or 9 full-time that are supervising many of our seasonal people during the summer months.
Follow-up. So what months do the seasonal folks work, and do you get the same people back every year?
That's the ideal situation. Very good question. We have teachers, semi-retired people, college students. So as those folks become available to us, as soon as our ice melts, they're on the water maintaining our buoys. They're doing more than just law enforcement. Right through the fall, when the ice comes in. So if we have someone who's a teacher, from mid-June until the last week in August, we're getting in and they're returning. We have the college students now, depending on their calendar, they're gone by mid-August. And we're not seeing them until the beginning of June. So it varies from position to position. Have a good day. Thank you.
I'm good. Good afternoon. So I am Samantha Parkman. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for New Hampshire Lakes. We are a statewide nonprofit dedicated to restoring and preserving the health of New Hampshire's lakes. I will not be long. I think you've heard a clear intent from Representative Darby and the Department of Safety, but we are just here to add that we are frequently approached at our organization by constituents and the general public about their concerns about the lack of law enforcement patrol on our lakes, not only just for boating safety reasons, but also for water quality law enforcement, which can include, if ignored, can become a problem for potential cyanobacteria blooms, which are potentially toxic to pets and animals. We are just here to show that the development of this task force is really just to bring state agencies together to optimize water body patrol coverage and supplement outside of the Marine Patrol and the use of available federal funds. And just here to show our support, so we urge you to support HB 397. And I will try and answer any questions if you have any. Beautiful. Thank you.
There's no pistol, so just other agencies speaking to each other, so.
Come on down, Len. You should be you should be making money somewhere, Len.
This weekend.
Okay, we're hearing HB 80. The Honorable Len Turcott has flown in to give testimony. Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Senate Committee. I am Representative Len Turcott, fifth-term representative out of Stratford County, representing the towns of Barrington and Stratford. You'll note this bill is amended. When I first introduced it, it had a second part of it that would remove the ability to vote via remote. That has been taken out. But really the more important part of this bill remains, and that is increasing or having a higher threshold for participation by remote means. And I'll say that my bill was influenced by the dealings with my own county delegation. So when I drafted it originally, the part about removing voting, I didn't realize, as people brought to my attention, that there were very small committees, 3 members, 5 members, not 36 members like my county. So that's the reason why that voting piece was removed. The history of this is in Stratford County delegation post-COVID, it became a very common occurrence for a lot of individuals or several individuals not to show up at the meetings, but yet want to participate and vote. I consistently raised the objections each time that happened and put it on the record, including one of my own. I objected to my own not being there when I was in Barrington, Nova Scotia, rather than Barrington, New Hampshire. They got a good laugh out of that, but I was trying to be consistent and develop a history on the issue because over the last 2 years, I'd had a lot of dealings with back and forth with the current county attorney and the previous one. The real example that finally brought this to a head for me, a couple of Decembers ago, we had a very important meeting, and it was in December, and an individual rep in our delegation chose to go to his girlfriend's house in Connecticut rather than attend the delegation meeting. And when I made my normal objection to allowing voting by Zoom, he stated, well, if I would have known Rep. Turcott was going to object, I would have come there. this clearly indicated that his attendance could have been reasonably practical, which is the current wording, but he simply chose what was more convenient for himself. So the reason for the change is I think we need a higher standard needed for attendance rather than simply participating remotely. I think those who make the effort and fulfill their duty of their elected boss most make the effort to be present and fulfill their duty as an elected official. And conversely, those who don't and participate remotely when they could have been present shirk that responsibility. And the reason I think it's important for individuals to be there, in my past, one of my past lives, I was a negotiator for our 16,500 member pilots union. And I learned very quickly there the importance of being in the room versus not. And because when you're in the room, first of all, you can see a lot of body language. On a Zoom call, you don't. If you have a caucus, as we did on a couple times in Stratford County, that individual who's on the Zoom may not be able to participate, and that may impact or not an important vote. The other thing is, and this is in the RSAs, is the quality of the audio and video. It can be very, very poor, and the RSAs require that the people in the room must be able to clearly hear and discuss with anybody on a Zoom. And a lot of time that, at least in our delegation, that didn't happen. So the determination of what is reasonable is currently made by the chair of the delegation. And it's extremely, as you can imagine, reasonable is an extremely subjective word. And sometimes it can be politically influenced, especially in a delegation such as Stratford County. And any subjectiveness that can be removed where possible to provide consistency, I think is a good idea. And that's why we've removed in the bill the term reasonably available and replaced it with unavoidable. And you might say, well, what's the difference? Both are subjective. I'll maintain that the word unavoidable is a step higher or a higher threshold than reasonable. And the reason I say that is when you go and look in the dictionary, reasonable means feasible. And again, extremely subjective. But unavoidable says impossible to prevent. So again, in conclusion, this would not change the ability of the body to vote remotely. In-person participation, I think, again, as I said before, is really essential in order to have fully transparent communication between the members of the body. Those of us who get elected to office should make the effort when possible to be there. And the other big thing is I don't think New Hampshire should be cheapening hundreds of years of the way we participate in public meetings by gradually and progressively excusing ourselves from actually being there. I'll leave you with a couple of rhetorical questions. Would we ever allow jurors in a trial to listen and participate in a trial while not being physically in the courtroom and then vote on the defendant's fate? No. And finally, I'll say, should this committee or the Senate allow remote voting for executive sessions or your full sessions? And I would say the answer to that is no. So with that, I'll take any questions. I do have copies a little more detailed in my testimony that I can provide you.
So help me with unavoidable a little bit. So unavoidable, there's actually I did participate in the Senate a couple of years ago. Lost my leg, so that week I was unavoidable. It was unavoidable that I couldn't be here. Then is work going to be unavoidable? I have to go fly. If I was you, I took a flight.
So, excellent question. As both are subjective, the issue becomes which is more. Now, when we talk about unavoidable, the reason that I'm trying to get this in here is I'm trying to develop a history of decisions by the county delegation chairman. That's all we're doing. So questions like that. Is work unavoidable? I could make the argument, yes, it is. Yes, it is, and no, it isn't. And here's why. Let's say the meeting was noticed 2 months in advance. I have the ability to ensure that I do not fly and I can be there for the meeting. If they called the meeting 7 days prior, I would say that would be unavoidable. So again, it is still subjective, but not as subjective.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. You must have done a great job, Len. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Sarah Burke Cohen?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Burke Cohen. I represent the New Hampshire Municipal Association. I will try to keep my testimony short. NHMA opposes this bill. We do believe this is putting a higher burden on a part of 91A that actually states that a public body may allow a member to participate electronically or by other means. So that would imply that the public body has to agree to allowing members to participate electronically in the first place. If they do, it is up to the chair and it is subjective. I assume the committees and commissions I've been on, there's always public input, public body input on what reasonably practicable means to the committee, so that it is fair. I'm sorry to hear about what's happening for the Stratford County delegation. NHMA's issue is certainly with that concept that this is a higher burden. We feel like this could actually limit people with disabilities. If I have a disability, I can't drive after dark, and my driver, my main driver is sick, has the flu, insert something here, and can't drive. Is it unavoidable for me to attend? I could call an Uber, I suppose. I could call, do I have a backup? What does that mean? I still think there is some subjectivity, and I think this could close out some, could cause some problems for folks with disabilities. On another note, so not only do we have an issue with the unavoidable being a higher burden that we think is not necessary given the fact that the public body already has the ability to say, no, we aren't allowing public in-person participation. We also think the language of this bill is problematic. Currently, in the bill, it says, a member of the public body may participate in a meeting other than by attendance in person at the location of the meeting only when such attendance is unavoidable. The way that actually reads, if you sort of interpret it with all of the clauses, is it should read only when attendance in person is not able to be avoided. That's what that interprets to. So that seems like it is not actually doing what the objective of this bill would be. It's sort of making it the opposite. So, if the Senate wanted to move forward with this, I do have some suggested language so that we can put the clauses in the right place if you wanted to continue using unavoidable. Because right now, it's as if the person is trying to avoid generally participating in person, and I don't think that's what the purpose of the bill is.
Good, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking my question.
Of course.
You had mentioned the word existing that you may permit, and I'll mess this up, you may permit remote testimony or attendance.
Participation. Mm-hmm.
If this is a county delegation, or if this is do they have to have a formal policy that permits this to happen, or is this a policy that each time a meeting's held, the chairperson would make that determination?
I suppose that's, so the way 91A is written, it's may allow participation. I suppose that would sort of be determined by the entity and how that public body wants to proceed. They could enact a policy at the beginning of the year and vote on it as a public body and say, hey, we are allowing, non-in-person participation, for the year here. And then they could go so far as determining what those reasons look like. Hey, car trouble, illness, work, childcare issues. I've seen it done a number of ways in a number of different public entities, depending on the entity, depending on the participation, depending on the size. But you can also have a public entity that could look at 91A and vote to say, we are not allowing non-in-person participation, because it is may, it's not shall, it is may allow. So I guess that is something that the public body can control in accordance with 91A.
So if I could, so without a formal policy by, let's say, the delegation, then it would be up to who's ever presiding over that meeting to decide whether they may permit that or not.
I mean, it does say a public body may permit, so it would seem to me that the chair wouldn't be able to make that decision about participation, non-in-person participation, without input from the public body. So it would seem to me, my interpretation would be that if it says may allow the public body, that the public body would have to make that decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my
You're welcome.
question. We're referring to county delegations here that
Yep.
meet sporadically a few times a year, but in fact, 91A covers every public body. So the decision we're making is
It's pretty
wide.
vast, yeah. It does affect every public body. I mean, certainly it affects everybody that is an under 91A organization. And that's why I've seen it so many different ways depending on what the public body is that's meaning.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Mo Bailey.
Oh, before I'm going to leave the language I have just in case. you
Sure.
want to- Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's that? Said Mo Bailey. Who's that? I think that's him. Officer, you're not Mo Bailey, are you?
No, sir.
You sure?
Pretty sure.
Oh, is that you, Mo? Come on up. Oh, you weren't gonna speak. Okay. Support. Okay. Okay.
And I am the Advocacy Director for Granite State Independent Living. We help people with disabilities live independent lives. There are many people ready, willing, and able to serve on these bodies, but transportation is a big hurdle for people with disabilities, and it is $22 an hour and $2 a mile for somebody with a disability to get transportation to one of these meetings sometimes. And the meter starts as soon as they pull out of the parking lot in Concord. So Concord to Rochester, Rochester to the meeting, back home, back to Concord. I have someone who costs $400 to bring them to the State House. It's really a burden. So I think they would love to participate, and we shouldn't make it any more difficult.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Seeing no further questions, thank you for your testimony. Is anyone else here wishes to testify on House Bill 80? Anyone that spoke wishes to speak one more time? Seeing none, thank you. We'll call a close to House Bill 80. Our next bill. For House Bill 4. Thank you. 485, authorizing persons who win the state lottery to remain anonymous. We have no one. Would someone like to introduce that? Yeah, I'd be happy to have you introduce it from your chair.
Thank you. For the record, Representative Tara Reardon, Senate District 15, introducing House Bill 485, authorizing persons who win the state lottery to remain anonymous if they meet certain criteria.
Thank you, Senator, for the introduction. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor or against House Bill 485? Yeah, that was my thought too. This is quiet. All right, we will call to a close, House Bill 485. We will move on. Are we at 210? Thank you. We will now move on to House Bill 337, relative reporting requirements for judicial counsel. And we will wait and see whom is signed up. There is no one. Senator Reardon, would you like to introduce House Bill 337?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tara Reardon, District 15, introducing House Bill 337. This bill requires members of the Judicial Council to submit financial disclosures and requires the Judicial Council to report to the legislature and Supreme Court any fee schedules.
Thank you, Senator. Is there anyone here wishing to speak for or against House Bill 337? Yes, sir. Please come forward. If you would state your name.
Good afternoon. Jay Bucky, for the record, Executive Director of the Judicial Council. The Judicial Council has remained neutral on this legislation, so I just wanted to indicate that I'm here in the event the committee has any questions for me as the Executive Director.
Thank you, sir. I didn't hear your name, sir.
Of course, Jay Bucky, Buckey.
Thank you. Any questions for the gentleman? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on House Bill 337? Senator, you and I seem to get things done in a hurry when we're left alone.
Exactly. Thank you.
I will call House Bill 337 to a close. Beautiful. Which will take us, Mr. Chairman, to House Bill 343.
Major Davy, you're all ready? Come on down.
Sponsors
The prime sponsor is.
here.
Representative Murray is here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Murray, I didn't see you. I just had one name, I came in late. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Not as good as you are, obviously.
Well, I will be brief. This is a pretty simple bill. The intention is to codify some of the existing elements that are currently in the reporting from the Northern Border Alliance, and then add a couple new things as well. I did forward all of you the most recent report from the Northern Border Alliance, so you can compare the language that's in the bill to the current reporting. So it already includes things like the equipment and technology that they're purchasing and the number of these persons arrested, persons cited, persons subjected to a field stop or warning. That's already all included. It just isn't codified in the statute already as it is. The things that this expands upon is things like, what are those equipment being used for and how that's assisting with the Border Patrol, aspect of this program, as well as trying to get more inclusive data on the people that are being, stopped or detained in the process of this Border Patrol. So if you look at the most recent report, there's a really high number of individuals who have been cited by officers who were, doing this work, but then very few that were actually related to the border itself, to people that were being stopped and then referred to Customs and Border Patrol. So you can see that there were 1,722 OHRV and pedestrian contacts and only 3 or 4 intelligence reports that were received from Border Patrol. So there's just a big discrepancy there. So part of the intention of this is to see, is the work that the officers are doing actually more related to the law enforcement needs of that area in general and less related to the actual management of the border? And if so, is there a better way that we can be allocating this funding to meet? Because what I've heard from the constituents up there is mainly that they have a lack of law enforcement in that area in general. And so for them, it's been helpful to have a higher amount of officers in their communities, but from the data that I can see and the anecdotes that I've heard, that work is not really actually related to the purpose of this program. So that's the only intention, is to capture more of that data so we can, evaluate the program and its effectiveness and ensure that funds are allocated appropriately.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Seeing no questions, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll try that again. Major Davy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for hearing my testimony, which will be brief. As far as the Northern Border Alliance is concerned, I have been closely involved from the genesis of the project. We have taken an all threats, all crimes, all hazards approach to enforcement in the North Country, and I can affirm what Representative Murray has stated with regard to the response by members of the public up in that area. The constituents are glad to have more law enforcement help. And so I can also attest that a great deal of the work that has been done by troopers and by local and county, state, federal officers who've been working there has been general law enforcement activity. There have been more DUI arrests than anything related to the border. That's certainly the case. That said, with regard to the latest version of the bill and its amendment, the Department of Safety has a couple of concerns with regard to the equipment and its use and the reporting of its use. Not all equipment. Obviously, the set of blue lights is pretty clear what it's going to be used for. There could be, however, some equipment that would fill informational gaps or networking gaps and allow for surveillance, for example. And we'd want to be careful, obviously, not to advertise where we're conducting surveillance because it projects potential areas in which criminal activity could be conducted more knowingly and more comfortably. Furthermore, with regard to intelligence, the requirement that the date, time, and locations of intelligence received being required within the report is, with all due respect, anathema to the notion of intelligence itself. It's useful information to thwart criminal activity, and it's not for public dissemination. So for it to be reported and to be made public information is problematic. It would have a chilling effect, furthermore, on the likelihood that a person who lives at a particular address and is well positioned to note criminal activity then would actually turn and report that if they had any reason to believe that that address would be in the report that came out every 6 months. That's really all I have for you, and I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Seeing no questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to testify on 343? Seeing none, that'll end the hearing. We're doing the amendment. Who's introducing the amendment? Oh, okay. I was letting him go. I'll introduce the amendment. Okay, I'll get him if he's still here, yeah. We're gonna do the amendment on, Dan Ennis's amendment, 1875, right?
Do I have that?
Yep. Did he
Do
go?
I have that?
I might have let him go. I didn't know he was introduced. I should have known. Okay.
1879. Thank you very much, Steve. Was that Senator French? Yeah. That was at the back of the room. You know what? I have this. I thought I had this. Rick, have you looked over Representative Lynn's suggestion to be added into this? Yeah, okay. Say it again.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, we don't have a second.
What's that?
Oh, we don't have a second.
No.
I don't know. Three of us could.
Well, I thought was talking with French.
There isn't. I did too from my seat a minute ago. The good senator.
You can sit there.
Kate said yes.
Okay, we are back in session. We're doing amendment 1875 to HB 369. I'll introduce the amendment for Senator Innes as he gave me a different reason, but he isn't here, so we'll go on from there. So the key words, relative to a misdemeanor sexual assault protections and relative to the duty to report for sex offenders and offenders against children. I think there was a gap that was leaving someone possibly out who was a possible sex offender, and there was a period that they didn't have to report in, and I believe the magic words are any of the following events: the person's release, the person's conviction of the sexual offense or offense against children if not incarcerated. I think if Attorney Lehman agrees that this is closing a window where someone could get out who was a sexual offender without reporting to their local police. Is there more to it, Attorney Lehman?
Which part? The amendment part, the main amendment or the amendment to the amendment that's been proposed?
The amendment to the amendment.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Well, you have questions, of course you do. Go
You're
ahead,
done
Senator.
presenting. Did you just say, of course you do?
No, I didn't. No,
Of
you
course I
just heard me.
Representative Lynn had suggested in an email prior to this that the wording that you just read exactly, but also including the person's conviction of the sexual offense or offense against children, if not immediately incarcerated, because that was a brand new little loophole gap that was created.
So could we add that here, Peter? I had heard those magic words before, so. And so can I count the added words as part of this amendment, or are we amending? Okay. Okay. Okay, so all in favor of, oh yeah, we're not exactly, I'm sorry. I'm ready though, okay. Does anyone else wish to testify on this amendment? Seeing none, that'll end the hearing. Can we motion to go into executive session? Okay, all in favor? Yeah, so a second, aye. Okay. Discussion.
On the amendment to House Bill 369, 1875.
Yep.
Thank you. The amendment that was just offered and the language that I think Peter grabbed when we were in the public hearing, the person's conviction of the sexual offense or offense against children, if not immediately incarcerated, to add that to Amendment 1875 is my suggestion. It was really Representative Lynn's suggestion. Yes.
We're gonna give you the credit, so great. So now I would vote to pass the committee amendment. Yep. Move we have to pass this amendment as just amended.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So now do I need to move the underlying 369? Yep. Yep. Motion brought to pass as amended. All in favor?
Second?
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I'll take it out. Hmm? Great, yeah. Oh, we're gonna move consent? Yeah, motion for consent? Why not?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the consent motion?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll take it out. Thank you, Pete. Okay, anything else we need to do? No. Come out of
I'd
executive,
ask Kate. I
Motion to come out of executive session?
unless there was something else you wanted to do.
anything else?
Hmm. Give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
You look amongst you.
Yeah.
Talk amongst yourselves.
So,
Okay.
this is my only committee left with any bills, I'm just saying. EDNA or Commerce, done. Where's the, what happened to Ultra?
Motion to go into executive session. Oh, we're still in there. Okay, so we can talk. We're gonna talk about 387, the balloons. I didn't think it was workable. I would, if I let go 40 balloons, what are you gonna have to find all 40? We didn't really have good enforcement mechanisms. Though well-meaning, I think it's not there. Senator McConkey, did you have anything to add?
I understand the sponsor's good efforts. 20s.
Push a little bit.
I understand the sponsor's good efforts on this. I know that I voted on this 2 or 3 times in the House when I was there. I just think it's an unworkable item and I won't support it.
Senator, yes.
Thank you, Senator. I would recommend, because I think it is an issue, it is littering, and it is detrimental to wildlife, to keep sections 1, 2, eliminate the penalties section, because I think that's the unworkable piece of the bill, and leave the, if you have a cluster of 20 balloons, whoever you're buying them from puts a little tag on there that lets you know it's to the detriment of wildlife if you let them go.
Senator,
Purely
do
educational.
you think I would leave the tags on if I were so inclined to let go balloons? That would,
You're a turtle killer.
what's that?
You're just gonna be a turtle killer.
Are we voting on balloons?
I've been called worse, so I can live with that.
What is going on?
Well,
Walk in and we're eating on birds and
They
turtles.
keep eating all my food when I'm at the
Jesus.
clam shacks. Anyways, yes. that
Nothing
is what we're
happier
talking
than a
about.
seagull with a french fry.
So my
Let's get rid of the
recommendation
balloons.
was to eliminate section 3 of the bill and pass it otherwise.
Oh, you're just trying to do an easy one? Balloons are easy. Just stop throwing balloons up in the air and it'll be fun.
The person that releases 20 or more.
Senator?
20 or
We're
more.
gonna take it off the table. We're gonna talk more about it. We might be able to live with your stuff.
So you're withdrawing your
I'm gonna
motion.
withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
And motion to move out of executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving out? Aye. Thank you. Okay, thank you all for a nice day.